Hi, and welcome back to The Lowest Crime, the podcast where we talk about true crime cases from one of the lowest countries in the world, the Netherlands. I am Eline, and today we talk about a case that deeply affected the community of Bennekom, the killings of Bert and Jacqueline van Ravenhorst. In September 1996, the couple was found dead at their home, the result of an extremely violent attack. What followed was an investigation that revealed a reality that no one had expected. For many details in this episode, I used the book Carrie and Eddie, the campingmoord as a source. Some of the information from the book I couldn't independently verify, but given their reputation for thorough research, I consider it reliable. Still, it is good to note that some information comes from this source alone. Also, please be aware that this episode includes descriptions of extreme physical violence and murder, sexual abuse and child neglect, so listener discretion is strongly advised. Without further ado, let's get into the tragic case of Bert and Jacqueline van Ravenhorst. It's Tuesday morning, September 17th, 1996, and confusion is spreading through the offices of the successful advertising agency Ravenhorst & Friends in Veenendaal. Everyone is worried. Where are their director, 47-year-old Bert van Ravenhorst, and his 44-year-old wife, Jacqueline? The couple had spent a week on holiday in Spain and were supposed to be back at the office on Monday, but they never showed up. And now, on Tuesday morning, they're still absent. It's completely out of character for the hard-working couple, who took their responsibilities as business owners very seriously. Phone calls from staff go unanswered, and both Bert's and Jacqueline's mothers haven't been able to reach them either. Growing desperate, the mothers call the agency and ask whether someone from the staff can go check the couple's home, since they are closer by. 2 employees from the company get into the car and drive to Bennekom. Just after 10 a.m., they arrive. They park on the sandy road and walk up the gravel path. But after only a few steps, they are faced with a situation they were not prepared for. In the middle of the path lies the bloodied body of a man. His skull is crushed, his injuries so severe he's almost unrecognizable. But from the build of his body, they know exactly who it is. It's their boss, Bert. They don't waste any time and run to the neighbor's house to call the emergency services, since mobile phones weren't common yet in 1996. Police arrive quickly and confirm the obvious: the man is dead. However, there is one detail that immediately stands out. He's fully dressed but barefoot. It looks as though he ran out the house without shoes. Inside, nothing seems out of the ordinary at first. But then, they see a trail of blood leading from the front door, through the hallway, and up the stairs. Upstairs, the police make a horrifying discovery. In the master bedroom, next to the bed, lies the body of a woman. Her head too has been smashed. It is the body of Jacqueline. On the same floor, investigators find 2 little boys, aged 3 and 1, crying in their cribs. They are completely soiled, filthy, dehydrated, and starving. Everything indicates they have been left alone for days, but miraculously, considering the circumstances, they're alive and stable. To find out who on earth would do such a thing, the police begin dissecting the victims' lives. Bert and Jacqueline were known as friendly, hard-working people. Bert had started his career in the accounting department of a printing company, before studying publicity and entering the advertising world. He had worked at a well-known Amsterdam agency before founding his own company in 1978, Ravenhorst & Friends, located in an old farmhouse in Veenendaal. He was considered a capable and imaginative advertising man, humorous, charming, energetic, and successful. His only flaw, people said, is that he could be short-tempered at times. From a previous marriage, Bert had an 18-year-old daughter named Eva. But a while after that marriage had ended, he had met Jacqueline van in 1984, during the premiere of the movie Siske de Rat. He was there because his agency designed the film posters, and Jacqueline had been invited for her PR role at the National Youth Fund. They had an instant connection, and their relationship developed quickly. Soon, Jacqueline even began working at Bert's agency, handling the administration. The couple married in May 1991, had 2 sons, and eventually bought a large detached home with a swimming pool in the outskirts of Bennekom. The home, set in a small neighborhood of just 6 houses, accessible only by an unlit sandy path, an idyllic, quiet place to raise small children. But that sense of safety and security was shattered by the brutal murders, which sent shockwaves through the community. Fear spread rapidly. No one dared to be home alone anymore. Babysitters refused late-night jobs. Back doors that people rarely locked before were suddenly bolted shut, and new alarm systems were installed. Police even increased patrols to reassure residents. What also amplified their fear was the fact that just 2 years prior to the murders of Bert and Caroline, another woman had been found murdered in the same woods, and shortly after, a local resident in Ede, nearby, was killed with a machine gun. All of these incidents combined made the normally so peaceful Veluwe suddenly feel unsafe. A large investigative team of about 25 people was assembled under the name Team Panorama, named after the nearby Panoramaweg. Their work began immediately. Autopsies confirmed that both Bert and Jacqueline were beaten to death with a heavy object. But they hadn't found any murder weapon at the scene, so the exact method was still unknown. Officers scoured the woods around the house. They photographed the surroundings and mapped out the couple's contacts. Who were they close with? Who might have reason to harm them? Anyone who was near their house on Sunday evening was questioned. They also tried to piece together a timeline of their final days and hours. It became clear that Bert and Jacqueline had returned from Spain late Saturday night. Sunday morning, they had had coffee with their neighbors and had gone for a walk with their children. The last sign of life had been a phone call that Jacqueline had made that afternoon. So, the murders had to have occurred sometime between Sunday evening and Tuesday morning. But because they failed to show up for work on Monday, police believed Sunday evening was most likely. A robbery was quickly ruled out. No forced entry, no damage to doors or windows, and nothing missing. It also didn't seem to be the work of a criminal organization, since those are usually cold and methodical. But these killings looked impulsive, emotional. But what could have been the motive? Every interview with family, friends, and colleagues pointed to the same thing. The couple had no enemies. Meanwhile, the media began speculating too, suggesting things such as business conflicts as the reason for the murder. But this too was a dead end. Despite there being a public tip line, no breakthrough came, until 3 weeks after the bodies were found. On October 9th, a man walked into the police station carrying 2 axes. 3 days earlier, on October 6th, children playing along the Bosbeek in Bennekom had found the axes hidden in a drainage pipe near the house of Bert and Jacqueline. They took them, left them elsewhere in the woods, and later reported it. When police went to look, the axes were gone, taken by the man who now came to turn them in. These axes became the breakthrough that the case had needed. The Dutch Forensic Institute, NFI, confirmed it. These were the murder weapons. Momentum built quickly. 5 weeks after the murders, Team Panorama arrested 2 suspects, individuals who had been on their radar for some time. Investigators had noticed a white car driving through the woods at night, with its lights off around the time of the murders. When 2 people in a white car showed up at the funeral, police decided to wiretap their phones. And when the identities of the suspects became known, the families of Bert and Jacqueline were stunned. The suspects were Eva, Bert's daughter from his first marriage, and her boyfriend Emile. And their fingerprints are on the axes used for the murders. During questioning, Eva, who lived with her mother in Randwijk, confessed almost immediately. She had gone to Bennekom intending to kill her father. She wanted him out of her life forever. Emiel's role was less clear at first, but police determined that the young couple had been neither intoxicated nor mentally unstable at the time. This had been a calculated killing. Eva had turned 18 the day after the murders. She and Emiel, also 18, had not been together long. They had met in the Panterijn school in Wageningen. She was an academic VWO student and he was in HAVO. Both were intelligent, from respectable families, and both had a preference for black clothing. Emiel, with a long ponytail, nose ring and earrings, was a striking figure. He played the French horn and hoped to attend the conservatory. He also had an unusual hobby, collecting axes. Their motive was an absolute mystery at first. Was it money? Family conflict? Relatives insisted that there were no major disputes. The relationship between Bert and Eva had deteriorated, and they had had little contact for years, but nothing that hinted at violence. But during interrogations, the truth came to light. In January 1996, months before the murders, Eva had given Emiel the novel Crime and Punishment for his 18th birthday. In the book, a double murder is committed with an axe. The couple spent hours talking about morality and what is right and wrong. Then, Eva had confided in Emiel and told him that from the age of 6 until about 14, she had been sexually abused by her father. She had been in therapy at Riach for 3 years. Emiel didn't know exactly what supposedly happened, but he believed her and supported her. And to him, anyone who touches his daughter sexually deserves to die. Later, in interrogation, he said he found murder sometimes more understandable than sexual abuse. He even refused to call it murder. He called it an execution. They had discussed multiple different options for killing her father. The first murder plan dated back to March of the previous year. But the preparations had been put on hold for a while because both of them were busy with their school exams. Eva later said that she was supposed to go to the US for her studies at the end of 1996, so it had to happen before then. Their first plan had been to kill her father in the woods while he was walking his dog, but this plan fell through when they found out the dog had already passed away a while ago. The second plan had been to break into the bedroom and kill him there, but the house was too large and too well secured. It wasn't possible. So they moved on to murder plan number 3. Eva and Emiel chose September 15th, 1996, one day before her 18th birthday, to kill Bert. That evening, they cycled to the villa with 2 hatches. Around 10 p.m., Emiel rang the doorbell, axe hidden under his clothing. Eva hid behind a stack of firewood, watching. Bert opened the door, unaware that the young man was dating his daughter. He had never met him before. Emiel said that his dog was stuck in a foxhole and asked to borrow a shovel to get him out. Bert stepped outside barefoot to quickly fetch one from the shed. As he walked past, Emiel struck him from behind with the blunt side of the axe. Bert collapsed. Emiel had then entered the house and went upstairs to the bedroom where Jacqueline was asleep. He woke her, saying, "Excuse me, madam, something has happened." When she jumped out of bed in shock, he attacked her as well. Meanwhile, Eva was still hiding outside, but then she saw her severely injured father trying to get up, so she approached him with her own axe. She struck him on the head with the sharp edge while simply saying, "Bye, Dad." Emiel returned and also struck Bert about 10 more times. The two fled into the woods, hid their axes in the drainage pipe, and cycled away. Eva caught the last ferry home and celebrated her 18th birthday just hours later. A month after the arrest, on November 19th, investigators detained a third suspect, a 21-year-old man from Amsterdam, a friend of the couple. He had known about their plans, had never alerted the police, and had even given them helpful instructions. In 1997, Eva and Emiel were transferred to the Pieter Baan Center for psychiatric evaluation. When they saw each other again, they reportedly said, "These are going to be the best 4 weeks of the next 10 years. And staff had observed them sitting for hours, intertwined, silently holding each other. Psychiatrists diagnosed both with extremely complex psychological disorders and noted that their disorders perfectly complemented each other in the worst possible way. Eva struggled to distinguish fantasy from reality. She had previously filed a false rape report and displayed all the signs of sexual traumatization. She for sure felt abused, although it was hard to determine whether or not the abuse had actually taken place. Something that had also played a role was her longing for contact with her father, and the deep disappointment that it never materialized. It had consumed her. Emiel had been the only person with whom she felt safe to express herself. He, meanwhile, had suppressed his own painful childhood memories and had no stable sense of self. According to the report, he projected knight and rescuer fantasies onto Eva, believing her alleged abuse demanded vengeance. He continued to insist that the killing was an execution and expressed no remorse. Eva also showed no regret. In a wiretapped phone call before her arrest, she bragged, "I did it. I'm proud of myself. They're lying safely in the ground under white lilies. I've had a great month." She said that the act of swinging the axe had brought her satisfaction. "You have to put effort into it. Use your own strength. With a gun, you just pull the trigger." The only thing Eva did regret, she said, was that Jacqueline had died too. According to Eva, plans 2 and 3 had accidentally become mixed together. In this last scenario, Jacqueline didn't necessarily have to die. Eva and Emiel had agreed that she would only need to be killed if she was a witness to Bert's murder. Because Jacqueline usually went to bed early, Eva considered the risk small. But still, Emiel had gone upstairs. During the trial, Eva spoke about the murder of her father with a cold, detached tone. She said, "I hit him with the axe that I had in a plastic bag. He wasn't supposed to get up. I wanted him to lay down again." But she also added, "I regret that my little brothers had to wait so long for help." Emiel said to the court, "We knew there were 2 children in the house, but we never thought about it. We never really considered what we would do if they woke up. We expected the bodies to be found the next day, and we didn't understand why that didn't happen. But what could we have done?" When the prosecutor asked if Eva had celebrated her 18th birthday the next day, she said, "It was a really special birthday." In her final statement, Eva added, "For me, regret isn't something that happens overnight. It has to grow. It's a process. You have to let it sink in. That's something I haven't dared to do yet." The public prosecution demanded 5 years in prison with compulsory psychiatric treatment for Eva and 8 years with compulsory treatment for Emiel. According to the prosecutor, Bert and Jacqueline were killed in a brutal, inhumane manner by 2 people who took the law into their own hands. Bert was to die as revenge for sexual abuse that was never proven. Statements from Eva's RIAG therapist, who had treated her for 3 years, did not indicate that Eva had been molested or raped by her father. The therapist suggested that at most there had been some inappropriate touching in the shower, and that Eva confused fantasy with reality. The prosecution added, "Someone with severely diminished responsibility is very close to being considered not responsible at all. For this reason, they could not request longer sentences than 5 and 8 years. The prosecutor said, "I have to take into account the mental state of these 2 young people, but I am deeply concerned about the families of the victims." If Eva was indeed sexually abused, of course, this must have been absolutely horrible, and I think anybody could understand having deep-seated feelings of hate towards her father. However, it is also clear that Eva had severe mental health problems that could have caused her to make up a story in her mind. No matter the truth, no one deserves to die this way, especially considering those two poor little kids just in the other room being left to fend for themselves for far too long. This story is a sobering reminder that people can be suffering quietly, and looking out for one another matters more than we sometimes realize. And that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this an interesting episode, please consider leaving a like, a comment, or subscribing to the podcast. It really helps me out. You can also find next week's episode, as well as some other extras on my Patreon page. Thanks again so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.